The Friday Champ rolls around again, this time a very soggy and wet racetrack that will surely challenge every single driver in the field. Hello and welcome back to Friday's GT Sprint Challenge here on RCI TV. I'm Jesse Lee, as always, joined by Les Stevenson from the commentary position and Stewie behind the cameras. Fresh off the racetrack from the very first Thursday touring car race one night ago. Fantastic racing that we expect here, Les. First of all, welcome in to a very wet and rainy racetrack. What do you expect out of this qualifying session?
Expect a very frantic session as always, and with this very moist Silverstone track, always provides normally good racing. We're going to see quite a lot of action tonight, I think, Jesse.
Yes, we sure will. And it's going to be very curious to me to see what manufacturer takes pole position. The last time we were here, Les, lest we forget that it was very, very difficult for the Mercedes to get going around this track. For whatever reason, the AMGs just do not work here.
Yeah, it's surprising, with that monstrous engine. It's surprising it doesn't. And maybe it's just the overall part of the car is just not suited to this track. Yeah, but like you say, it does seem to struggle compared to others. But yeah, it'd be interesting. The McLaren's always been good around here. You can see we saw in some of the practice session already that the McLaren's are all up there. But it'd be interesting in the wet as well to see. Mercedes is a beast in the wet. Let's just see what we can find out with the qualifying in the rain. And I wouldn't be surprised to see Porsches up there too.
Yeah, of course, the last time we were here in the World Tour, it was dominated by a Porsche. See if we have the same results here today. We talked about Mercedes maybe struggling, Porsche doing well. The McLaren is a perennial favorite pick, a Swiss Army knife of race cars around here.
Certainly is. It seems to love Silverstone. It is I suppose the home of the McLaren. It's just suited really well to this track. Lots of high speed, high downforce speed, corners. Sorry, and we know the McLaren does like its downforce package. So yeah, it'd be interesting to see what ends up happening here. But of course, the rain always brings a different spectacle, should we say? And yeah, it's interesting to see as we go into Cops here with Salverline on board, and getting on the curb there, it's going to be slippery, but manages to pull that one off as we go into Maggots and then into coming up into Beckett's, and just riding those curves, trying to keep off the accelerator whilst you're on those curves, just to make sure you maintain as best traction as possible as we now come down to onto Stowe, towards Stowe, sorry, down the Hanger Straight.
Well, one of the other things we haven't mentioned, of course, this is the final round of the championship here today. It ends in the UK, and this man has it all to lose. But if there was ever a track where that could be a possibility, today might be that day, though it is a bit extreme between the top two here. And, we'll just have to see how qualifying shakes out. Qualifying here, unlike a lot of racetracks, I feel like qualifying here gives us a fantastic representation of what we might see. And Savalainen just absolutely fighting the car for grip here.
Yeah, it really is. And, it's all that power at the rear, a lot of weight at the front. Really does struggle with the traction, especially in the damp condition. But, still looking like he's got a good hand to it, though. It's to go through the newer section, the arena. Now he steps himself up to go down the Wellington Straight, back down towards the older part of the circuit, getting up to quite phenomenal speeds really down some of these straights, especially in this AMG with this, like we said, this monstrous engine. Get it as close as you can to the apex. I would say in the wet, trying to keep off the curve as much as possible. Now into Luffield, and get a good exit. Try and keep off the curves, like we said. Like you said, really fighting that car on the exit there as he comes around to set his first lap.
What will it be for Savalainen? A 209.624. How fast is that? Only time will tell. Tadas Jutnavicius comes in second place, just 27 100ths off the pole sitting lap time. Deepers is through, and Borgosman's through, more than half, nearly 6 tenths of a second slower than Savalainen. That's very important. Those are the two main drivers. We're looking at a shot for the championship. Allen now goes provisional pole in that BMW. We slept on the BMW here, and it's not paying off for us. A 209.545 paying off for Allen, though. That's a very nice lap. 8/100ths quicker than Savalainen.
Yeah, that was a very good lap, and with the temperatures they're at as well, with the amount of rainfall, yeah, I'd say it's a good lap as McCall now in the AMG putting down a 209.1, good 3 tenths quicker now. So
Ooh.
yeah, the time's going down. I mean, obviously as the cars go around, we've got a lot going on right now. The rain, or should you say, the wetness of the track will decrease slightly. I mean, we have got constant rain, but it will improve the track conditions, and we'll see the times coming down. I wouldn't be surprised at the end of the session we're seeing even dipping into the 207s.
I will tell you, I wouldn't have called McCall being that fast in that car, but of course the South African team there, the ATK team, I believe is what they're called. Yes, indeed. They have a lot of experience here in endurance racing, so maybe that's paying off. But Joe McCauley, the third driver in the championship, has the longest way to the championship today, but still technically in it. The hashtag blame Mike Jones Porsche, the old Porsche of all things, that has pretty decent straight line speed as far as I've been told. That car has gone provisional pole, a 208.565. McCauley's going to try and do everything. And of course, you get bonus points for getting the pole position. That could be the first step to a long day that could potentially see the underdog McCauley. You don't get to say that very often. Underdog McCauley with a championship.
I mean, like you said, underdog and McCauley, they're not words that we put together normally, but he is the underdog today. But we all know what type of driver that McCauley is, and using the older style Porsche, like you said. But we know it's good in a straight line, hence why maybe he's able to get some of these lap times like he does, and the track times at Silverstone. So be interesting. But like I said, the track conditions improving every lap. Silly not to be out there all the way to the end, and I wouldn't be surprised if we see the 207s. But you can see the Porsche he's really able to get the traction down very early, and able to keep it going. And it seems like he's got a handle on this, Jesse.
He sure does. Looks calm, cool, and in control. I think I've just described Joe McCauley in general, but certainly behind the wheel. Absolutely no drama through Brooklands. We'll see if left field is the same story. Yeah, you're 100% correct. No counter steer, no over rotation. It just looks so very planted through Woodcote, and this could be a improvement on the 18's lap. It will have to be, because McCall was in within 7/1000ths, no more. 2 minutes 982, beg your pardon, for Joe McCauley, as Morgan McCall now, who was so close, 7/1000ths. The difference between the two has now got 6/10 to make up. Win or lose, I will say, having two AMGs, based on what we saw in the World Tour, in similar conditions, mind, I'm very impressed that we have two AMGs up inside the top five.
Likewise, Jesse. I'm absolutely amazed that we're not even seeing a McLaren in the top five, let alone in the top three. It's I was fully expecting Gosman and Deepers to be quite up there, but for whatever reason they maybe not been able to get that lap in, maybe a bit of traffic, or maybe they just haven't got those tyres in that operating window that they want and best suited for them. But still got 6 minutes to go. Already in the 2 minute and 7s already. I thought we might dip into them, but we're already in them already to go. So you never know. Could even get into the 206s, but I think that is a push.
I've just been pinged by RCI founder Mike Jones, who has quoted me. He's quotably quoted me talking about Joe McCauley. I didn't realize that was his name in this server. His name's actually Joe McCauley in this server, and I've described him as calm, cool, and under control. And I do, on the racetrack, in a racing sense, feel that describes Joe very, very well. I will stand by those statements.
Yeah, I mean, almost as if he needs a pillow behind his head. It's like he's almost just the car's driving him. That's what it looks like at times. But yeah, no, like we said, he looked like he had complete control. Like you said, very little um, yeah, correction to do, and you could just hear it on the throttle as well. He was very confident early on the throttle and straight away full throttle. It seemed like anyway.
It sure did. The big thing for me was no counter steer, no correction necessary. That car on a rail, and considering the conditions that they're in, that is incredible. That's going to be a car very hard to beat. Morgan McCullough's reset to the pit lane. If they hurry, they'll get one timed lap out of this. And that's exactly what I'm talking about. This is Tadas Vicious, the TJ Porca racing car. They're P3, one full second off of Joe McCauley's time. And you saw that. That's a different Porsche, obviously, the newer one, but you saw it coming into that corner. It just looked out of sorts. I think that was Cops, but just looked so out of sorts in comparison to what we saw from McCauley. Of course, Joe trying to give himself the best chance to win the championship. Points on the line for the pole position as well. Everything matters here. Joe can get himself some more bonus points by having the fastest lap in the race, but let's focus on the task at hand. 4 minutes to play, 8:10 p.m., very wet racetrack, 21 degrees C with a little bit of I'd say that a crosswind on the front straight, but a tailwind down some of these straights other than the front one. Morgan's going to sit in pit lane. I don't know if the ATK Sim Racing 540 is going to take further part in this session, Les.
No, it's almost as if that's the best time they feel they can get. I mean, I'll be honest with you, it'll be very difficult to get a new set of wets on there and get out there and get them up to temperature and get them in that right window in time, ready for that one flying lap. I don't know. Maybe some of these guys have got setups that can do that. I personally, it normally takes me a good couple of laps before I can get guys in that operating window. But maybe he's thinking the same thing. But most of the cars are out on track now. Interesting to see these last, like you said, the last 3 minutes. There's plenty of opportunity there for people to get some flyers in, and let's see if we can get that one of those McLarens in the top 5.
Victor Borland trying to improve upon their station. They will not. Well, actually, they did on that lap. That was a 10.627 up to P21. And that only puts them 3/10 behind Labus for a top 20 spot. They get another lap, of course. I still see the 540 sitting in the pit lane. They are going to come out. They're going to have to do it in a hurry. I would worry about their tire temperature at this stage. I don't think that they will make another attempt. I believe I just saw Jack in the 16 McLaren stop on the straight, on the F1 straight, and be set to the pit lane. This is the story. Borgosman, the 240, they have invalidated their lap, I'm being told. Jack had invalidated his lap. Sorry, Borgosman has not invalidated his lap, and he needs one down in P7. And it's not like the championship chance is fading away here in qualifying, but starting in 7th place is a world of difference from starting somewhere up inside the top 5. Borgosman desperately needs to gain at least a few positions here.
Yeah, definitely, and yeah, just watching on board like you saying, and see not as comfortable in these conditions in this car as someone like Joe and McCall there at the top 2. It's easing the throttle on and even sometimes back midway through, but yeah, as I say, that up to P4. Look at that, 8/10 off. So yeah, a good lap there. He's getting more and more confident, and got another minute to go, so you've got enough time to get that one more lap in.
That's exactly what Borgosman needed. Needed something, a little bit of shot in the arm, maybe. And that's exactly what they needed. Well, here is your championship leader, Savalainen. P5 now. Borgosman's jumped in. McCauley, the top of the heap of everyone. Constantine Soldatov around the final couple of turns, getting ready to set what I suspect would be an improvement here He's going to need at least a couple of tenths to get past Deepers for a top 15. He might have that and a little more in hand, folks. Let's see what the lap time is coming through the final turn and across the line. Yes, indeed. 13th, a 209.637, I believe that was. Gets them up the field. Deepers goes P9 with that lap, a 9.207. Gets the 47 McLaren inside the top 10. I'm still impressed with the AMGs running second and fifth here in a very nice balance of cars. Manufacturers, that is, inside the top five, and you could argue even inside the top 10. Joshua Allen comes across the 9.072. The Team Ballas Esports driver, good enough for seventh place.
Yes, and yet to finish the lap, so it could even be another chunk of a lap. You never know, but it's yeah, it's good to see Joshua up there and well inside the top 10. Yeah, like you said, see those two AMGs in the top five is impressive. Obviously the wet weather has maybe helped that, but yeah, it's definitely great for the championship fight. And let's just see what happens here in the last 9 seconds of quali and now going into Brooklands and into the famous Luffield section, and then round Luffield now, and then into Woodcote down that final straight.
Well, I will say, as they will come across the line, that looked a little slippy, and that's going to be a waving white flag moment for Joshua Allen. Didn't like what happened coming to the line there. Will eject on that lap. What I was going to say before that happened was how very strange this is. We've only got a handful of cars that have attempted a lap here at the end of qualifying. Most cars have elected to forfeit their right at a final lap, either that or have invalidated at some point. But this has got to be, we've only had one, two, three, maybe four or five cars out of all the ones that we have to cross the line here at end of qualifying. You don't usually see that in the dry, especially not in the wet, because the track tends to always continue to improve. But only a handful of cars improving, and it looks like Joe McCauley completely safe and alone on the top step. A 7.982, good enough for pole position. McCauley 6 tenths back. Lawrence snuck into the top three. Well, we talked about the points championship. Let's take a closer look at that championship and show you where everyone stands. Savalainen had a brilliant race last time out, and he needed it and put himself in control of this championship. 267, the mark for Savalainen. Second place, Borgosman, 234. Got a little bit of work to do, 30 some points to make up, but can be done here today. Joe McCauley as well, a little bit further back in third place, but still has an outside shot of winning this championship and has got maximum points so far today by taking the pole position. Caracas in fourth place, 207, and Tata Shooting Vicious, 173, rounds out your top five. Behind them, Martin Lawrence, 166. Deepers, 153. Morgan McCall, 10 points off of that in eighth with 143. Thomas Jack, 126. Fabio Calandrino rounds out your top 10 with 105. And here is the place where it always seems to come down to last minute points outside the top 10. Wouter Billen holds on to 11th with 105. Soldatov on 96. Joshua Allen, 83 points, 1 point in front of Stridham in 14th. Dario Barzaghi is the top 15 with 72 points. And Frave, 65 points in 16th. Labus 1 spot behind and 1 point behind with 64. Justice, 62. Arthur Lechenko, 61 points. And Honor Rose inside the top 20 with 58 points. This is, of course, where it gets very close. Sim Smeets 21st with 47. Victor Borland 44. Steve Hughes 37 points. Till Jorgensen 34, tied with Will Stevenson. The only tie we've had so far here for the final round. Yen climbs 1 point off of that tie with 33. Brian Scheckerman 14 points. And the 120 has 11 points. Everyone else has retired from the championship. Well, there's a lot of close fights for the minor positions, Les. It should be very interesting to try and keep track of that. But as we pay attention to the top three, it's doable for all of them. And we talked about Macaulay having the longest road to a championship here today. But starting out with maximum points that you can get in qualifying by taking the pole position, it looks like they probably will take fastest lap. But even still, all of that, he's going to need a little help.
Yeah, he's going to need a little bit of help from his friends. Um, no, he's getting. Yeah, I mean, obviously, even with fastest lap and to get the win also, in these conditions, it's going to be impressive in itself. Without incident. Yeah, it's going to be very interesting, Jesse. Like you said, we've got fights all over the field, even as far down, down into the lower end of the field. But either way, there's going to be plenty of action. You're going to see plenty of jostling for position, being the last race of the season, wanting to get that final decent position.
Well, we go back through the grid. It almost feels like only a few rounds ago that we started this championship, but alas, this is the final race of this season. Of course, post race today, we have a special announcement regarding the upcoming Friday series and what that will all entail. But for right now, we have a race on our hands. Les, you are no stranger to the racetrack. I'll ask you, what does Savalainen have to do to guarantee a championship today?
Keep it on the track. Keep it on the track. Keep the mistakes to a minimum. Try and keep out of trouble, and just push, but keep yourself, within those white lines. I know it sounds so simple, but really that's got to be the aim of the game. And then if you can finish as high as possible, that is obviously second best. But at the moment, I think really he just needs to make sure he can finish the race without minimal mistakes, we say, with minimal, and try and finish as
Decent turnout for the final race of the season. There so often is a huge drop off at the end of the season. I don't think anyone would argue that we have not suffered the very same, but still, very healthy turnout here in the rain. You know, all of those issues we saw at the World Tour, we brought that up because that was our frame of reference this year of racing here in the rain, but none of that seemed to matter here. We had several AMGs inside the top five, the new and the old Porsche doing very well. Realistically, we still had a Porsche up front. It just wasn't the Porsche that was up front in the World Tour. Not even the right Porsche for that argument, but even still, the manufacturer mix very nice up and down this grid. Of course, pit stops happening today. Talked a lot the last couple of weeks, me personally, about the undercut just not being favored. Do we suspect most of the top 10 will pit as late as possible, or do you reckon we'll see a mix of strategy here today?
think I personally believe that most of the top 10 are going to be looking at going as long as possible. I really do. And yeah, the wet tyre should easily last. I would have said last the race. I can't imagine most are going to take tyres. I could be wrong, but through experience, I would have said that it should be able to last the race. Whether it's the quickest option is another matter, but they should be able to last the race anyway. But they will have to, like you said, with that mantra, they will have to stop regardless anyway. So, with the rain, is it going to ease off? Is it going to stay the same? It all comes into factor with regards to what they do with that pit stop. Are they going to change tyres? Half and half the fuel? We'll have to wait and see. But most of the top 10 are probably going to just take the pit stop as late as possible and probably keep the same set of tyres and go with the fuel load that they can.
I think that's a very good point. Of course, 25-second mandatory stop on pit lane, 5 more seconds will get you a tire change. That might be a tantalizing proposition for some, but like Les just said, in the rain, it might not. It might nullify that thought altogether. It's all about what and how they use their Pirelli tires. We'll see just who ends up being the better long run cars. That was the other thing from the World Tour that we learned. Not all cars were created equal on a long run. You'd have a car that was really good in the start of the stint, but absolutely fall off near the back half of the stint. Could create some very interesting racing indeed. We're about half a lap away from racing today. Mention a couple of things from the chat. As we always are monitoring the chat. Michael Redford predicted a Porsche on the front row. Michael was 100% correct. Simpson Riggs said 22 degrees C here in the UK, so the ambient temperature in Sim is just about right. We aim to please Simpson Riggs. That was completely by luck, mind you, of course. And Sim Racer Guy saying he's cheering on Joshua Allen today. He's in hospital. Well, very speedy recovery to you. Hope that you're doing well. Hi. Hello to Robert McCall as well. Tybe has asked, is one-to-one steering lock in the race good? Refer back to you on that in a second, Les. But everyone's helping him out there. An interesting question to ask. One-to-one steering lock. I don't know if I would use that personally.
Yeah, and possibly not even in these conditions either. I think that'd be rather interesting a way of setting the car up, that's for sure.
Well, a couple of corners left, some nervous drivers with some big aspirations, all coming down to the final race here today. Joe McCauley, Morgan McCall, 1-2 on the grid today. The ATK team certainly learned a lot of lessons with that car here in the World Tour, and it looks to have been used to excellent effect today. But nobody in qualifying was anywhere near Joe McCauley, just absolutely dominant. What will the race have to say? Will it be the same? Will it be a clean lap one? Very quickly, welcome in the live stewards. Of course, Fridays are live stewarded. Hopefully, they have an easy evening of racing. Wherever you are in the world, we hope that you're doing well. And we welcome you to spend the next hour with us, waiting for the green flag, waiting for the lights. There they are, and it's racing down into turn one. A nice start by Morgan McCall on the outside. Oh, and sideways there was, I believe, that, what Bentley, was that Martin Lawrence? It was Martin Lawrence's Bentley. 3 and 4 wide as they race into Maggots and Beckett's, and it looks like, yes indeed, Morgan McCall has taken the lead. Contact exiting Beckett's there, or entering Maggots there rather, I should say. Several cars sideways having to hit the eject button. They'll use the available tarmac to get through Beckett's and race down the straight, but a messy start in slippery conditions in the midfield, but absolutely brilliant stuff by the 540.
Certainly was, and it just looked like maybe like touching there from the Gosman into the back of Lawrence got him side, but well held and well saved for Lawrence to go in and still be going in P5 there.
I have no idea what happened to the 171 CLR Bentley. That it just looked sideways to me. Don't know if that was contact or not, but neither makes no difference. Savalainen up to P4. Lawrence right behind him, troubling him for the spot. Meanwhile, fighting over the 8th place spot, Vasily Anafreev. This is what Anafreev sees in the 177, looking ahead at Allen, and it's not a whole lot, to be honest.
No, that is it's tricky. It really is tricky in these conditions with the spray. Just at times, it's almost, well, it's a wall, isn't it? Sometimes you just can't see through it at all. You just got to go by your instinct and your track layout. You can sometimes see the curbs approaching the side. Judge yourself with that, but equally you've got to judge where the person in front of you is, and it makes everything 10 times harder.
Well, I thought Martin Lawrence was going to challenge Savalainen for 4th place, but it's the other way around. Juke Vicious in the 38 Porsche is looking to take 5th spot away from Martin Lawrence. Close contact, close quarters racing there, no contact. We're going to go back to the start here. Now let's pay attention. The red and blue car, oh yes indeed. So that's exactly what happened there. The McLaren with contact. Good save though by the CLR driver.
That was it. Looks like we're having a battle at the lead there. Thought it was right next to the ball. But yeah, no, it did. And like you said, great save. Great save by Lawrence at the 171 Bentley, and quite tap. got the rear end coming around, but these conditions assumed he was going to go spinning off into the gravel, but well held.
That was perseverance by Martin Lawrence to keep that car on the track. This is the battle for the lead. Morgan McCall took the lead around the outside. We've seen so many excellent passes around the outside of turn one for the GT course anyway. And you saw another one today. Morgan was not sleeping on that start. Joe McCauley maybe just didn't have quite the grunt as you might have expected. Now, Joe trying to get that spot back now. Morgan McCall, for what it's worth, has the Speed Juice Fastest Lap award, and Powell Lopez has went around, and I don't think there was contact there.
I said it doesn't look like it. It's just got himself right. Looks like it was at his stow, I think. But yeah, it's nightmare corner under braking, and these the heavies.
Oh dear! This is the battle for. Oh. Will Stevenson trying to hold off an entire army of cars there.
Certainly was, and very close racing. Yeah, like I said, a little bit of contact. They did well and go around the final few corners there into right, but yeah, well held and great fighting. I mean, this is what I love about the wet conditions. Induces closer racing, and some guys are just better in the wet conditions than others, and really mix things up.
Joe McCauley takes the Speed Juice Fastest Lap of the Race award away for just a moment, as Martin Lawrence now has the fastest lap of the race. Probably wouldn't have called that. What does Justice have here? I believe that's, oh yes, this is going back to that incredible gaggle that we saw earlier with Will Stevenson. But Justice getting a spot there, top 15.
Yeah, certainly a lot of door banging, wasn't there, Jesse?
Go ahead and call this, Les. Tell me what's going on here.
Oh, it looks like Will he just loses on himself, and wow, how there was no contact. How was there no contact, Jesse?
I would have sworn I saw that car beside him twitch, and that might have been a one of those strange netcode issues there. I might be very much mistaken, but I could have sworn that's what I saw.
Yeah, that was very, very odd. I just assumed he'd lost it, but no, how you say that? Oh, gonna go back on board now.
Yeah, oh, wow. that there was
a hit.
There is certainly a netcode related incident there, and unfortunately that kicked off a couple of other cars that spun after that. I don't know what car that was, and also went sort of awry for them, but either way, we're still racing here. 540 still leading over Joe McCauley. Martin Lawrence, the fastest car in the race, and action all over the place. Felix Deeper's here. Felix Deeper's losing positions here.
Yeah, it looked like he was going through around Abbey there. He's just starting to lose the rear end. I'm wondering if he's got damage maybe from the previous incident. We have been told he has had an off-in already, so I'm wondering if he's got a bit of damage. But yeah, it's certainly, that was very strange of Will Stevenson. Very strange.
Speaking of Will Stevenson here, a little bit of contact with the Aston, the 183 Aston. I think that opened the door for Will Stevenson for the time being, but the 47 still is in front of the 108. Wouter Billen in the 183 did lose a spot in that exchange. Oh, Soldatov. That's not net code. That's just getting after it on the curbs there.
Yeah, he, rear end certainly looking lively on the Bentley there. No, it's good. I mean, I'm just looking at the top five, and we're really having to eat our words, aren't we, Jesse? We've got an AMG P1 and P4 in these conditions on this track. We were only telling our lovely viewers before the race started that not the best cars around.
Well, of course, if I was a betting man, Les, I'd be broke by now because I would have placed all the wrong bets in all of the wrong places today. I have been told by the stewards that there will be a lengthy review of lap one, Maggots and Beckett's. Certainly saw a lot of contact there and cars shooting off. May have gained some spots by doing so. There may have been contact that have led to them being forced off. Either way, will be reviewed by the stewards, and it may take a little bit of time to get the results from that. Meanwhile, battle for P1 and 2. I would hate for Joe to think that he has to win this race to win this championship, but I honestly feel that he does. And to play devil's advocate, Les, if Borgosman gets a penalty for getting Martin Lawrence sideways and taking the spot from him, that could be a drive-through for Borgosman. That could make this a very spicy championship battle.
Very spicy indeed. And it was before the race had started. I had my eye on the 171 Bentley Lawrence. You know, I'm already in the fastest lap category. I'm just wondering, get those positions back and maybe work his way back up. I really got a good feeling about this Bentley around here today. And it's pretty good in the wet anyway. We all know what Martin Lawrence is capable of. But yeah, it like you said, the potential penalties from back one into really could spice things up. And like you said, I do fear that Joe feels that he has to win, which could in turn obviously work against him also. But let's see what happens. We're still got an hour and 20 minutes to go. We've still got pit stops to go, and there's plenty that still go on. And we're looking at the back, out the back here of Sam Lyman's car, back at Lawrence. Like I said before, it'd be interesting to see get back in that top three at least.
Tell you something else. After the minor contact, I would have sworn that the 171 was headed backwards. Tadas was all over him, but now it's put 2.5 seconds on him, and it's called all the way back up to Savalainen. Savalainen can ill afford to lose any spots here. That would put him back into P5, and McCauley, who is not laying in wait for Morgan McCall here. McCauley all over him. I don't know if he's trying to force a mistake or just trying to look for a way around, but either way, close stuff between the top two. Lawrence trying to put Savalainen down a spot. Borgosman may potentially have a penalty. Look at that Porsche outbrake that AMG. That is just Porsche power right there.
Certainly is. And just wondering whether we've got McCall here. He's the guy that's going around and getting rid of that water. And he's the leader of the track. And he's getting rid of that water as we see Joe now going alongside McCall now coming up towards Brooklands on the inside, and it looks like the move is done already. I mean, yeah, I think that was just a poor exit there from McCall out of the arena, the farm section, and and McCall was able to capitalise, and now he's got the lead.
Joe McCauley picking his spot and taking back the lead. Job done. Joe McCauley has only one more task left to do. That's run away and hide and potentially take away the fastest lap of the race for extra bonus points. The rest is out of his hands. Joe McCauley needs a near perfect day. He needs Savalainen to struggle. He needs Borgosman to struggle. So far, neither one are. But you can't control the other drivers. You can only control your own race car. And right now, McCauley is controlling his at the front of the field. Savalainen here. Let's see what happens through Maggots and Beckett's this time. A little wayward there. Didn't look like it wanted to turn appropriately.
Yeah, looked like he turned in, and like you said, he tried to correct it, and then he didn't want to turn after that. And I don't know if you heard, just before we looked at the pictures on board, there was some audio there, and you could hear the puddles that they're driving through, and it really hit the underside of the car. It just goes to prove how wet it is there, especially offline.
Taking a look, Martin Lawrence, nothing doing. Falls back in line on Savalainen. This is a second wet race we've had this week, by the way. It threatened to rain for touring cars yesterday. It did not in the race, though it did very much threaten a few times. I thought for sure we were going to get a partial wet race. It did not occur. And this is the second time, though, this week that it's rained quite heavily. I would say this is just about as heavy as we would allow it to rain in RCI. We kind of cut it off. We restrict it from getting to the part where we would consider it silly and dangerous. A very significant rain. Puddles are certainly abound, and Martin Lawrence finally goes inside outside, living La Vida Loca. Martin Lawrence gets P4. Walk us through what happened here.
Yeah, and like you said, Savalainen tries to take the wider line to get the better exit coming out onto the Wellington straight, and Martin Lawrence capitalised and dives up the inside. It just Bentley seems better under the brakes.
Smart driving by Juna Savalainen doesn't need to have a perfect day here, just needs to have an average day, does the driver of the 100 to win this championship. Realistically, if something goes wrong for the 240, that would be all the sweeter, but doesn't need anything other than a solid day. Did not fight Martin Lawrence tooth or nail, did not put his car in any sort of danger. Could that potentially be the move that, even though he was going backwards, could that have been the move for the championship? Still inside the top five. Tadas Juknavicius looking back at Fabio Calandrino. This for P6. Calandrino thinks about going up the inside. He's still thinking about it. Washing out is the Porsche, the 38 of Juknavicius. Did not like hitting that curb at that angle, and neither would I, for that matter, as Calandrino pulls up Anafrave in this. And if they get held up any longer, Allen and Solotov are coming too.
Yeah, that was extremely ambitious there of Calandrino, but fair play, really put Vicious under pressure there and see that, really struggling in the curbs hard as well. In these, never really going to end well normally, but no, they both survived and they tried to fight on. And let's just watch them a bit longer here as they come into the heavy braking into Vale and Club, and Aston Martin just at the moment just be quicker the two cars.
Excellent racing. I always say, and it's not something that I say, I think everybody in motorsport says rain is a great equalizer. What does that mean, you may be wondering? Well, if your car has a natural advantage in the dry, sometimes that's nullified in the wet, and it all becomes about the drivers. I've always said you get to see the best and the worst side of drivers in wet racing. This is brilliant stuff by everybody in the top, I would say 8 or 9 so far. Very close, excellent moves, and some very close racing to boot, as Anafrave has some thinking to do, defend from Allen behind or attack Calandrino, who's stuck behind. Juknavicius in front. I absolutely love a wet race. Steve Hughes, P19, looking for 18th. That's Levchenko in front of him, and climbs right behind. All of these drivers seem a little low down for me based on their previous pace. What happened to Will Stevenson here?
Look at those conditions, Joe. Wow.
Baby!
I was just about to say, you can't hardly see anything there through the spray, and then to see, all of a sudden you see back Will Stevenson in the Bentley, see his car sideways. To try and avoid that, it must be quite daunting.
I'm Will Stevenson. I'm starting to think that sideways is how you're supposed to go through that corner. That was a different accident to the previous one we were talking about. That was 2 times he had went through there and he was knocked sideways.
Yeah, and not having the best of days then, Will. But yeah, no, I mean, and we see that's Steve Hughes, unfortunately, just losing it. Unfortunately, hitting the wall, and there's going to be quite some substantial damage. But that is accelerating, Jesse, on the painted surface. Wet condition, never. And as we saw there, but yeah, unfortunately, Steve will probably have quite a lot of front end damage.
Very unfortunate.
Jesse,
Yeah,
sorry. We've seen Gosman got a penalty.
He sure does. It's not nearly the variety I thought it was going to be. So let's take a look at the penalty report. And it looks like a 5-second penalty for car 240 for overtaking with contact, position not returned. A 5-second penalty that was against Martin Lawrence in the 171. That's very interesting. That's only a 5-second penalty. Expecting something a little bit more hefty, but stewards must have determined that it was 60-40 or something like that, because normally at minimum without position returned it's a bit more hefty. So the stewards got to the bottom of that and decided that was not as critical as we must have thought here in the booth. Racing incident for the 108 and the 47, racing incident 330 and the 16, and a warning for car 108 for releasing brakes early after an incident, a warning for car 11 for not holding brakes after an incident. Those are all on lap 1, turns 1 and 2.
Yeah, quite a lot of instances. I must admit, I was expecting a lot anyway with these. Can't expect them to all get through, but either way, that's. I must admit, I think 5 seconds is a penalty that maybe it seemed to be a little bit harsh. It's a bit the lighter side, as you were saying, Jesse. So, again, as always, wouldn't want to be the stewards.
Well, it's well handled, and I was expecting that to take actually a little bit longer than it did. Oh, eject button being hit here from one of the cars in this fight, and they will go the long way around and rejoin on the racetrack. And obviously, you can't pick up spots like that going off the racing surface, but decided on that occasion it was a bit safer to go off of the racetrack. So that happened there. Fabio Calandrino racing into or for an attempt at a top five spot. Now, a little too close off the racetrack for my liking. We've already seen one car rejoin and immediately light up the rear tires. Don't think it can't happen to anybody else. It surely can in these conditions. The only good news we have for you, weather related, is that it is going to lighten up a little bit, but not nearly enough to make a huge impact. It might get rid of some of that standing water, but not really going to dry it up too much.
No, and cars aren't spread out on the track enough yet to think that maybe we will get a dry line in these. Well, I certainly think it's lighter, but I mean, it will get lighter again by the looks of it as well. But I don't think, like you said, I don't think it's going to be enough to dry the track out.
Well, of course, we talked about the 5-second penalty for Borgosman. Well, it's also gone a bit wrong for Borgosman. They were fighting for a top five inside the top five positions, and now they're all the way back in P10. Something must have happened for the 240. A spin, certainly you would have to think, if they lost that much time. That was more than, I reckon, 10 seconds or more that Borgosman lost to the group that he was in. So whatever happened to the 240, they are back in the 10th place spot. We're going to see if we can't find that for you folks. And quite honestly, I think everybody here in the box is curious as well, Liz.
Yeah, I mean, I did notice he was going down the order slot. I had it in my head. He had a drive through, then realised, no, you're right. It's a 5 second. Yeah, must have had a spin or off. Yeah, and hopefully we can find a replay of the board going into turn one, Stowe. No, not Stowe. Sorry, Cops. I'm going on about Jesse. And it just loses on
Oh,
exit.
dear.
Loses on exit. Luckily, like no damage.
So I'm wondering how they, because this is not losing 7 positions, that spin. I wouldn't think. Oh, no. Yeah, it sure is. Look at that. The whole gaggle going by there. I had forgotten from fifth place back to ninth. They're all in a straight line. So, yeah, that is indeed what happened as a spin on the curb. We saw the 107 do it earlier. Now the 240. And you've got to be careful. It can happen literally to anybody. Your chassis doesn't make a difference. Sometimes the curbs are just brutal.
Brutal is one word, and there was some stones curves and some other racetracks, but that purely was just down to painted surfaces. And
Oh!
oh no,
Oh no! We've lost Borgosman. The 240 has retired from the race.
no, oh, that's really unfortunate. I oh dear, I looks like it could be technical, assuming either way. Yeah, that's really unfortunate. I mean, so close to winning a championship now to be in that position, really gutting.
Borgosman needed a decent points day and needed Macaulay to sort of not turn up the wick, and more importantly, needed Savalainen just to stay behind him. He had that going for him on consecutive laps, got a penalty. The lap after had a spin, and then reset to the pit lane. That car no longer taking part. The 240 McLaren is out of this race and out of this championship fight.
Yeah, it really is. That's really unfortunate. But anyway, we move on. Still got an hour and 7 minutes to go. Wonderful track. One of my favourite tracks, I must say. In these conditions, not my favourite condition, but certainly adds to a good racing like brilliant. So Joe really the groove now and putting out a nice gap at the top. 5-second gap now. But you have the 171 Bentley who's slowly catching the ball now within a second. So I wouldn't be surprised to see towards the end of the race, seeing the 171 and the 18 fighting for that top spot.
Look at this fight still continuing. This is Soldatov, Allen, Anufrave, and I believe Calandrino, and yes, it is. Joshua Allen, a little bit of contact there with Soldatov, a little bit more contact there on the exit. Return to sender, says Konstantin Soldatov. Joshua Allen, the Team Ballas Esports driver, will fall back one position now. And of course, Allen's not going to appreciate that. Flashing of the lights, that's not an appreciation, that's in disapproval. Was looking for a line, couldn't find one, so instead flashes the lights. These drivers are getting a little bit frustrated now with themselves. And I believe, is that the 19? That is Gratis Caracas, who is all in here. So we have 6th through 10th place, all basically in a line right now, and just up in front of them, Martin Lawrence, P3 now, with Borgosman's retirement. Fastest lap of the race. He's the speed juice, fastest man on the track, looking for second place on Morgan McCall. Let's take a look at this again. Tell me what you see.
Yes, Joshua gets the inside line into that first part of the chicane, and then obviously bit of a door banging session today, and I don't know, it's a bit of something to nothing really, but yeah, as you see, Soldatov actually ends up getting close 8, but I don't know. I think that's a tough one for the yeah. No, it's there's a name you just mentioned before as well that we haven't played the full race. Francis Brackus, number 19 AMG, and up into the top 10 now, sort of silently making his way through the field.
He sure is, and Caracas looking to improve his final championship points position. Not entirely where Gratis would like to have been, but we showed you the points coming into today's race. They're very close from, realistically, anybody that you're around past the top 3, so 4th on back. Realistically, whoever you're racing with, you typically will have a shot on them here today. It's how close it's been. Victor Borland goes for a spin, and I think that's a familiar sight we've seen today.
Yeah, was that round turn 1, Jess? Yeah, it looks like it was just on the exit. Cox, like you said, was catches a lot of people out, as we see now. Martin Lawrence and McCall here battling for P2. Close and respectful, tight races, we see.
I was going to say, I've seen so very few people go around the outside of that corner and make that work, and it almost came off, but excellently held by Morgan. Morgan just gave enough room, and I thought I saw a yellow for the 19, and in fact I have. Now, that looked very strange.
Yeah, and that, I can't help Phil, but
ooh!
That's Will Stevenson as he comes through. I mean, how many near misses is Will Stevenson going to have today? But how did they not make contact? That could have been epic.
How did they not make contact? How did Caracas get themselves in that position in the first place? I didn't see anything. And then, of course, that's Will Stevenson. That's not Gratis Caracas. That's Will Stevenson, who very nearly got clipped up again there.
Yeah, I can't help but feel a little bit responsible there. But the commentators curse on Caracas. Not just saying about how well he's, how he's slightly come up through the field, and then that happens. But so be it, it's happened. And like I said, Will Stevenson reaps from it. In a driver's perspective, he's taking a position there and not having to do an awful lot, but he'll take it. And how they didn't hit is beyond me.
Lawrence has got P2 away from Morgan McCall. The CLR driver who started inside the top 5 got a little bit of contact into Cops on turn 1, but has since flown back through the field. Joe McCauley has not been able to eclipse Lawrence's fastest lap of the race, and now Martin Lawrence is P2. He's 9.1 behind Joe McCauley. I wonder now, with an hour left in this race, can Martin Lawrence have a shot to win this race overall? We're going to have to find out. 9 seconds is It's basically purgatory, let's be completely honest, but the pace we've seen out of the 171 might be doable.
I really believe he can catch Joe. I firmly believe time or the gap between Crawley and Lawrence is only because they've been fighting for that P2. I mean, you look at Savalainen, like he's caught Ryan Paul as well now. So yeah, I wouldn't be surprised to see that gap close right down 3 or 4 laps.
We talked a lot about Morgan McCall having a sort of a master class of racing that AMG in the wet around here. What about Martin Lawrence? Always seems to do really well here, regardless, but in the wet conditions, absolutely thriving today in the Bentley and hustling that car around very, very well. Wouter Billen in the 183 on Caracas now. This for 11th place after all of Caracas's dramas a few laps ago.
Yeah, and Walt Villain's already on the back of cracks, and we've seen the replay now of the. I think we've already seen this is after the overtake. Martin Lawrence and McCall, but yeah, you can already see now Martin Lawrence is in the gap. Interesting to see after the next lap how much you can gap down to Joe, and if the pace is there. But like we said, we've still got an hour to go, so plenty to happen. We've got pit strategy to come into play, and the conditions are going to get slightly drier, not much more drier. We are being told now that it could be that the rain could get heavy again after that. So it's all up in the air at the moment as with the weather. But yeah, it certainly makes for an interesting race.
Les, let me put you in the driver's position real quick, and let me ask you a very, a very interesting question on that. You've seen the 19 of Caracas slide sideways. We saw the 108 get all out of sorts, and a couple of other cars as well. If you're one of those cars, even though it's wet, even though your tires do not wear nearly as much as they would in the dry, do you change wet tires knowing that you've probably done at least some damage to them? Do you spend that extra 5 seconds to put new wet tires on the car?
I think down in those sort of positions, I probably would say yes. But go for an extra 5 seconds if it fits. It's going to take you to change tyres. I think I would just go for it. And then you never know. The guys above you that might not take tyres might suffer that bit more, and you might just have that more grip. And the weather could change again. The weather could get lighter rain again, and then you'll be reaping the rewards. Whereas the guys in front with the older tyres, the worn tyres, that's even bad grammar, Les. We'll suffer with lap times, and you could reap the rewards from that. I personally would, change.
Morgan McCall has called it quits. They'll come down pit lane to do their mandatory stop. Now, going to be my follow-up question before Morgan destroyed it. I'm going to ask, does Morgan McCall pit and take tires, considering they seem to be losing the most time out of any car inside the top 5? That AMG was lightning off the start, but fell off a little bit. Does he take tires as well, despite him not having any real major issue?
That's a difficult one to call. Difficult one to McCall. They're all coming out tonight. It's I don't know. We've only done just over, so you can't really judge how long the tyres are going to give you the optimum performance. I suppose we've only still got an hour to go, so it's risky either way. But what's he got to lose now? Net P4 doesn't change tyres, and then assuming everyone else doesn't. I suppose really it probably is worth a gamble, but wait and see.
Steven's making fun of me in chat, saying it wouldn't be a Jesse Lee broadcast if we weren't talking about tire changes, as Caracas has went off the track again here. And oh no, Caracas, their day has gone from bad to worse to absolute nightmare. You saw it live, folks. An ACC assigned drive-through penalty for track limits. We didn't talk about it here today, but perhaps we should have done, because track limits in the wet here can be a bit stingy for running wide, and you've seen it here with Caracas. That is a drive-through for track limits.
It really was unfortunate. I mean, he put the power down, lost the rear. It pushed him out wide and just kept down on the power. And I think if he just let off and just allowed himself to come back onto the track before, without gaining much time, and like you said, the in-game drive-through probably wouldn't have occurred. But like you said, the day goes from bad to worse.
More cars coming into pit, and of course now with the right. Ooh, make sure you can get down to speed there. Gratis says, "Oh, that's going to be a retirement." I can already tell they brought that car down pit lane not to service it, but to retire the 19. That's very unfortunate indeed. Well, we have had a couple of more stewards' decisions. You haven't seen any red numbers or letters on the screen, and for good reason. I shall explain. Racing incident between the 991 and the 223. Racing incident between the 107 and the 11. Racing incident between the 183 and the 47. And a no further action between the 223 and the 991. And I believe the stewards are all caught up now.
Yeah, it's not as it's considering there's not as many incidents I thought it would be in these conditions. But yeah, it's a shame to see Caracas having to retire there, and it's still got plenty of cars left on the track to make plenty of fights and competitions, and this is even more opportunity now for some of these guys that maybe thought that they wouldn't be able to get into those points. Yeah, it's a shame really, but we've only got the 540 McCall now is the only guy that's fitted. Would be interested to see if he took tyres. Don't actually know that for certain yet, but yeah, he's the only one that's pitted so far. It was quite early on for my liking. Just I don't think I would have gone to pits as early as this.
Well, I think I can actually explain what was going on with Morgan McCall. Robert McCall, the of the same family McCalls, of course, is in chat confirming the tire pressures in the AMG were too low. I suspect they have done a tire change and changed the pressures to get them in a better range. And that car fired off very well. It looked like it might have been struggling. Didn't look grip related, but of course, it doesn't always have to be grip. You can lose time without it looking too dramatic. It certainly didn't for the 540, but now they've got to go a normal hour's race on those tires and hopefully with corrected tire pressure.
Yeah, I mean, nightmare if you've started the race and not sort of calculated for surface being a little bit less watery, should we say, in racing line, and I'm assuming the tyre pressures were too high. That's my guess, but well, if that is the case, that's probably the best thing to do. Come in, get those tyres changed early, get out there, get your head down, and right pressures, crack on, and hopefully can either keep that position or possibly even make up position. We'll have to wait and see. But it's good to get a bit of inside information.
Well, if you missed the first 30 minutes of the race, well, let's get you caught up with what all has come into play. Joe McCauley set the quickest lap in qualifying, and boys, it wasn't even close. Nearly 6/10 of a second, Joe McCauley was on pole with the hashtag blame Mike Jones Porsche. And behind him, he had Morgan McCall on the race start. Morgan McCall was able to jump McCauley and lead the opening couple of laps, several laps, in fact, before Joe McCauley assumed the lead. But he wasn't the fastest man on the track. That was Martin Lawrence, who was down to fifth at one point, has driven all the way up to P2, and until just a lap ago, had the quickest lap. Now, Joe McCauley, your quickest car on the racetrack. The rain has slowed a bit, I would say, but we know before the end of this race, it's only going to pick up in intensity again. For Gozman, who was looking good, was at least in front of Savalainen, put themselves in a position to maybe make a run at the championship over Savalainen. That car got a 5-second penalty for the start, had issues, lost a bunch of positions, and has since retired. Savalainen, all they need to do to win this championship, they already had a decent points lead. All they needed to do was have a decent day. I would certainly say they're doing so in P3. McCauley, though, doing everything in his power. Fastest lap in the race, pole position, and a win. Trying and hoping for something to happen to the 100. Savalainen is pretty pretty safe, though, in third place right now. The 120 here trying to go around the outside of Wouter Billen. This could be a bit sketchy here, but
Yeah,
it
that's yeah, like you said, and a bit sketchy around turn one there, but bang it some packets. Yeah, I mean, Joe's just flying, isn't it? Certainly looks like he's got a real handle on that Porsche in these conditions around this track. It just looks like he's breezing along. Lawrence, unfortunately, is not able to catch Joe, but let's see what happens. With it might all change. I wouldn't be surprised now, in all honesty. We're seeing some of these cars moving over to the wetter line to maybe try and cool the tyres. I'm wondering if maybe tyres will be taken by most people.
well, our broadcaster has reacted a very strange way, so we'll see what he's talking about here. Oh, yes, indeed. Trying to go up the inside, gets covered off. No contact there as the 120 continues to try and get by. Billen has no interest in letting that happen. Looking to force Billen over a little bit to the right. Can't do it themselves. They go over to the right, and they've got Deepers in behind. Deepers trying to figure out a way to get a 2-for-1 special here, but nothing doing. They're all single file, but I just saw on Maxim's car the front wheels, the white rims on that Bentley greatly illustrate the turn angle of those wheels, and that was a little counter correction in the center of the corner. The car's not handling optimally here, I think, is the understatement of the day. Wouter Billen, though, holding tough there in P10.
Yeah, it really is, and nice to see the MPs and do having a nice race. And as we see now, number 16 getting a drive-through. So probably an in-game drive-through, probably for track limits, and that's a real shame. And like we said before, to know it's something you've done, it's just gutting really, and makes your day so much more difficult. And like I said before, with regards to Brackus when he did what he did, to get his drive-through, just ease up and just slow down and just hope that you're not going to get your drive-through that way. Then it's the safer option. But there we go. It's done. What's done is done, and and they've just got to take the penalty.
Yeah, it's unfortunate. We see it at certain tracks a bit more than others, and that's due to the track bounds, of course. And Silverstone is one of those tracks we typically see it. Of course, the way ACC works, the off-track warnings and limits are changed in the wet as well, so they're not static, wet to dry, and they used to be quite large indeed. Those of you that remember the end of last year, the beginning of this one, and they tightened up those limits semi recently. It seems like just yesterday, but it was several months ago. And everybody, including myself, we had to relearn what the track limits and the track bounds are. There may be a white line on the edge of the track, but that's not technically the track bounds. So you have to relearn it yourself. And unfortunately, the vast majority of us either learn by watching other people get penalties or getting penalties ourselves. So that process continuing.
Yeah, I mean you learn by mistakes. Uh, that's how you normally operate, and you go out there and you do your practice. You put the hours in, and you'll reap the rewards that way by knowing. We know what most of them are around this track now. You've got the exit of club going onto the Hamilton straight there. You can't go too wide there. You also know the same for cops. When you come around that first corner, you need to keep it inside that white line and keep the curb and move further.
Well, well, well. Anna Frave is in the pit lane, and I believe Maxim is also in the pit lane in the 120, and in fact is indeed, as those become the second and third cars to complete their pit stop. This is Joe McCauley. He's like the other side of the pillow at 2 a.m. whenever you need a little refresher. Calm, cool, collected up at the front of the field. Do you do that, Les, in the middle of the night? Do you flip your pillow over?
No, I'm normally completely dead to the world. I'm once on my head hits the pillow, that's it till the alarm goes off.
Hmm. Does your wife complain that you snore a lot?
Yes.
I'm developing a flavor profile for Les Stevenson, folks, and that all fits in. Typically speaking, people that are hard sleepers like myself, we snore.
Yeah, and it's unusual for me to hear the thunderstorms. My wife telling me to shut up.
Good, God bless her. Joe McCauley leads the race well and truly. We were talking about when Lawrence took second. Remember, that was 9.1 seconds adrift. Lawrence was said that it was doable, but it doesn't look like it is to be. That 9.1 second gap has now ballooned to 13.2 seconds. McCauley adrift as Savalainen's only 3.3 behind Lawrence. So the focus shifts. Could we potentially see a fight for second place here?
I, I I still think the car. I still think it is on. It just depends on who takes tyres, I suppose. Uh, with the weather now looking like, I just wonder. I think the sensible option would be to take these because you'd have that bit more tread. You'd got to cope with the heavier rain a bit better. And with a 13-second gap, someone like Mark Norris, I think they've got to go with new tyres and go with the gamble, and that may be the only way they can close the gap.
Certainly something you got to be aware of if you're Martin Lawrence. You already know that McCauley has taken the quickest lap from you, and maybe the battle might be coming from behind rather than in front. It's a worry that you oftentimes have, and today might not be any different. But right now, Savalainen is, it's a couple of laps anyway, lost a few tenths, and that will be music to the ears of Martin Lawrence. The majority of cars have not pitted. I will say Morgan McCall is out in front of the 177 and the 120. Not that we didn't expect that to happen, but just confirmation visually that Morgan is out in front of those cars. Morgan was the first car to pitted around the hour mark. Robert McCall has confirmed that the tire pressures were wrong on that car, and we suspect that has been fixed. Will Stevenson in the pit lane, Peter Billen in the pit lane as well. Around the halfway point in the race, Les, about the time for some cars to come in and pit, but I think you and I both agree, pitting late, probably the better strategy if your race is going the way you planned it.
Yes, and I think some of the guys are going to be waiting to see how much the rain doesn't, if it doesn't. Yeah, I think most of the leaders are going to leave us. They've got another 43 minutes window open, so they've got plenty of time to make that decision. Someone like Joe, with the gap that he's got, that comfortable position. We've had this conversation before. What sort of is a comfortable gap, and the gap that Joe currently has is what I would love to call 14 seconds now. He pretty much can decide what he wants, really.
He sure can, and he probably will do just that. Meanwhile, back in the pack, still racing to be had, Thomas Jack in the I Refuse to Say That Name team, 16 car. And Labus in front of them, though now you can see them quite a bit more clearly. The rain is not quite as heavy as it was at the beginning of the race, but as you pointed out earlier, it's only going to get worse, and it might be a deluge here at the end of the race. Oh my goodness! That's all crossed up on the steering for Thomas Jack.
Yeah, and also for the 799 as well. But some left to right, a lot of left to right, should we say. Army racing. As we see Savalainen now in the pits for what looks like their mandatory pit stop.
Sure is. Several cars have decided the halfway point is the right time. Savalainen down and gone. That looked like a regulation standard pit stop to me for the 100. But they might have changed tires on that car.
Yeah, I think it's should just confirm that as well. So yeah, I think Savalainen in the position he is with the championship fight. I think it's a safe bet, really. Knows he definitely can make it to the end now with the rain looking like it's likely to intensify as well. And it's a safe bet, really, isn't it? Like we said, and, with that number one pit stall as well, that I noticed, which Salmon is notorious for. Forwards, Thomas Jack gets very loose there on the brakes into Stowe.
Oh my goodness. Thomas Jack is absolutely sideways off of almost all of these corners. It must be dramatic for him, but it's fantastic for us to watch. To his credit, he's holding on to it.
Certainly is, and but being in the top 10 again, and yeah, it's good. I mean, I'm just looking up the order as well. You've got Calandrino currently showing in P4. I mean, I think that's probably about P5, although it now shows him in P3 with Duke Vicious now in pit lane. But yeah, it's good to see Calandrino up there as well. Fighting in top five, and as we're now on board, Will Stevenson looking back down at Walterburn, and these guys have all pitted. It's be interesting to see where they all come out at. You've got McCall, what's that, about another 20 odd seconds up the road. So yeah, it's interesting, very interesting. Now it's even the top guys coming there.
Well, here's how it's gone. Savalainen leads the cars that have pitted. Morgan McCall is several spots back, but realistically second on the road of those that have pitted. Soldatov third. Got Allen, Anufrave, this man, Will Stevenson, Billen, the Maxim, and Levchenko, the 19 cars we have left here with the GT finale for Friday. And Billen finds themselves immediately back into, if not the same fight, a very similar fight as to before they did come in.
Yeah, and looking very tail happy there under braking as well. We're now looking at June Vicious even fighting with Morgan McCall. So that's
that was for position, yeah.
It was for position, yeah. So made a position now. I'm wondering if Duke Vicious didn't take tyres. Maybe that's where some of the time might be made up. It's cool now. It looks like, yeah, we're going to get an overtake down low. And yeah, Paul does make the move, and that makes it stick. Yeah, lovely job.
Look at this. Look at this. Konstantin Soldatov in the background. He's not going to wait for anybody. The 38 Porsche looking to go down the inside, but gets covered up by Morgan McCall, who fights back for that 9th place. Now, what can Konstantin Soldatov get out of this as they all spread out again? No opportunity presented, and an excellent defense by Morgan McCall. I thought Morgan was dead in the water. It just not so. Tadas is going to have a rethink and have another go, I think.
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it really thought he'd lost that position as well, but really, really good under the brakes. Of course, obviously just well balanced in these conditions. Yeah, he was able to keep that position. They now fight on.
Vicious now has to figure out what they want to do as Joe McCauley. Never seen a car exit pit lane like that. It looked like it popped up from the bottom. Usually it drops down and leaves, but either way. Exactly like that, for instance. Joe McCauley down and gone from their pit stop. Martin Lawrence followed McCauley in, down and gone as well. Doesn't appear any issues on those two stops. The top two are clear and have completed their stop. Felix Deepers leading currently, still has to pit. Martin Lawrence did not take tires on that connection lost Bentley.
Wow, that does surprise me. So I don't know if Joe did or not, but he did. We're hearing he didn't. So yeah, okay, interesting. I mean, you shouldn't need to take tires, but you just wondered if they would, in regards to strategy and with the intensity of the rain changing, whether that was going to be an option. But they've obviously decided not to, and on they go. And we'll have to wait a little bit for the timing screen to update. But it looks like Martin might have even made a bit of a gain there on Joe.
They sure will if certain cars have not pitted or excuse me, have not taken tires. We know that Fabio Calandrino, the 12, did not take tires. You want to talk about a driver who's told otherwise, Stewie, that he did not take tires. So you're going to have to sort that out on the back end, I think, with Mr. Tom Bryant, because either he did or he didn't. Got conflicting reports on the 12. And Konstantin Soldatov in the 991 is having conflicting reports on if he's faster than Juke Novicius and Allen at this point.
Yeah, that's how much quicker Joshua was there through that corner. And yeah, it's yeah, like you said, with the conflicting reports of who did take tyres, it's difficult to say. But yeah, it's just intriguing, isn't it? I mean, we've still got two people left to take that pit stop. We've got Jack and Deepers. Um, but yeah, I mean, it's always a tricky one. You know, we all know that the wet tyres will last. It's just a case of how much time they're going to lose with the older tyres in differing conditions. But you know, it does look like it's going to intensify over the rain, and just be interested to see now with 36 minutes to go. If anyone that has taken that gamble and taken new tyres, and let's see what they can do. You know, there's also in that first part of the phase of the race, you know, how many people had a lighter fuel tank? You know, did anyone go half and half, or you know, it all depends. We might not, never know the answer to that. It just you know, towards the end of the race, we might see where these new tyres and where the different in fuel loads do count. But yeah, it certainly makes it very interesting.
Just to confirm, as per usual, I'm the one that has it backwards, not anyone else. Of course, the front two that were leading, Macaulay and Lawrence, did not take tires. Calandrino did in the 12, and it's a fairly decent split on drivers that did take tires and did not take tires. My apologies to both the ears that I have in the broadcast booth. I heard that wrong. The inevitability of me being wrong is always present here on Friday's Justice has had a wicked spin. One
Yeah,
car
and
involved, they get it going, but that was very, very dangerous and unfortunate for the TJ Porca Racing Porsche.
yeah, and like you said, unfortunately, you know, especially the flow happened before that. You know, unfortunately, it's that Porsche. I mean, I haven't, like I said, I haven't driven that car much before, but I certainly know in the rain it really is, and it's not a surprise to see Porsche you know, spinning, pirouetting corner there. But you know, there are other Porsches out there that are able to keep on track. Joe is fastest lap as well, so it's obviously able to do the lap times. It's just not in you know in my hands. I don't think I could.
Felix Deeper still yet to pit, so does Jack in fifth place. Everybody else has already come down pit lane, and we continue to watch Fabio Calandrino working on Morgan McCall. That could be after the pit stops. That will likely be a top five spot. Talking about Calandrino, the SPQ Racing Team driver, they've had a pedestrian season. It hasn't been a shambles. It hasn't been terrible, but it hasn't been remarkable in any way either. Top five today could potentially prove to be their best finish of the season, and a well-deserved one at that.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And you know, like you said, it may well have not been the best of seasons. You know, we've been quite silently sort of working their way through. You know, here every week, and you know, maybe be able to get a top five finish here today, which would be a great result to finish off the season. But no, it's good to see a mix of drivers in these high positions. You know, whether the weather's had something to do with that, most likely. But you know, either way, it's great for the championship and nice to see.
Well, we have the newest member of the pass through gang, and that will be Victor Borland running in 19th. That 141 McLaren has extended track limits one too many times. ACC assigned penalty, a drive through for Victor Borland, and they're doing that as we speak. About penalties, we've only actually had the one penalty all day, a couple of warnings. And on top of that, we've had no further action just recently between the 183 and the 120. No further action between the 38 and the 991. And other than that, it hasn't been a ton of contact out there.
No, and that's great to hear and great to see. And, you know, in these conditions, that's just just expect to have a lot more contacts than what we've had. So no, it's good to see. And you know, just looking now, and Deepers now is the only person not to have pitted. So yeah, sensible, really. I think it's worth a gamble. Keep it going all the way as far as you can, as far as the car will allow you, the track will allow you, and see where you come out. But yeah, but Martin Lawrence doesn't appear at the moment to be closing the gap onto Joe. So Joe, Joe's in a comfortable position. He really is, and he's actually closing the gap on the. Yeah, it's with 32 minutes to go. I think there's still plenty of time for anything to happen. But yeah, like you were saying, great to see the minimal amount of contact that we've had today.
Really is the one penalty to the car that's no longer in the race. And other than minor contact warnings, that the biggest damage has been done by extending track limits, and ACC saying that they've run afoul of those track limits. What happened here? Ooh, a little bit of a contact and a shove maybe between Tadas and the Soldatov car. And they've just changed positions here. Oh, yes, the brunt of the Bentley down the straight, shading over. Oh, a couple of contacts, 2 hits, 3 hits. Oh, no, it's worse than an overtake. It's worse than minor contact. Both cars go careening off the racing circuit there.
I don't really understand what happened there, Jesse. It looked like they hit the first time, and then the second time was a little bit strange, and then the third time, I really don't know what happened there. But I just hope it wasn't.
That seemed personal.
It did. I was just going to say, I hope it wasn't aggression, but can't help but think that. But well, we'll let the stewards decide on that one, I suppose. But yeah, very strange, very strange.
That looked like two drivers that just refused, like they had had enough. And it came down to that. And that was unfortunate because that was several contacts, and it led up to both of them spearing off the racetrack. They have gotten it back on the track, albeit for 9th and 10th position. Hopefully they can clean that up a little bit, because that was a bit argy-bargy, I think. I think we can all agree. Up front, Deeper still has to pit. McCauley, Lawrence, and Savalainen, your likely top three. We were curious where Morgan McCall would come out of this. Well, they're 7.2 behind Savalainen. That would be for third place. Morgan would technically be in fourth right now if Deeper's pitted, who is the only car still yet to do their stop in the race today.
Duknovich is really trying his hardest to get as close to the back of Bentley there, and really pushing the limits, the boundaries, going through Maggis and Beckins. But just going back to that incident, from what I can recall, it was just, I don't know, to me, it was just, first one, yeah, okay, fine. Second one, yeah, were they turning into magnets, attracted each other? Who knows? But third one, well, that to me was a no-no, and it just, yeah, poor driving, really.
Well, you know what they say, you make contact once, okay, twice, and on the third time, that's basically a fight at that point, right? So I think maybe that's what happened. Oh, look at Tadas work the wheel of that car, hitting the curb unpolitely, having to settle the car back down, but does so to great effect. Calandrino, P6. This might be a top 5 day for SPQ Racing Team. They will certainly like to cement that and get by Morgan McCall. Morgan, who led this race very early, has found that AMG a bit of a struggle on the longer run, I've noticed, Les, and that was sort of part of the problem at the World Tour a few months ago as well. Felix Deepers, by the way, Let's Motorsports 47, has relented and come down the pit lane to serve their mandatory stop. That will put McCauley back out in front of Lawrence Savalainen, and should make this a battle for P4.
Yeah, Pete. Yeah, right. You're right. For P4, you're correct. Yeah, I have heard the Mercedes, the harsher on the longer run. It certainly appears to be that today, and wondering if McCall was saying about the tyre pressure before. I'm just wondering if maybe it's a bit more than just tyre pressure.
Sure can be. Morgan trying to hang on to that spot. As I'm trying to find the 47, the timing board hasn't fully updated here, but the 47 is way behind this group. You'll see Deepers fall down there. In fact, it is. So Morgan McCall P4 holding on to that spot. Fabio Calandrino 5th place. And still, I tell you, if anything, that stop that cooled off the potential fight for second place. Martin Lawrence was only 3 to 4 seconds to the good in front of Savalainen, and that gap now has more than doubled, 11.7 the gap, second to third.
Yeah, it really has changed things, hasn't it? And yeah, and looking down through the order, I mean, you got Joe being absolutely flying out in front. You know, mine's got good pace. So I know we've got a drive through now for three of them in P7, and again, I'm assuming that's for track limits. Yeah, we've just been confirmed track limits. So yeah, it's this track and and the track limits are becoming difficult for some.
Frustrating days abound. If this was a 1 hour race, that particular penalty for Vasily Anafreev would not have been a problem. But unfortunately, it wasn't, so it is for the 177. Of course, the season finale here at a very wet Silverstone. It is raining ever harder, and it's only going to get worse. I don't think it'll get to the point where it gets any better today. I think we're going to start and end with fairly heavy rain. All that being said, the drivers and the teams have navigated it pretty well, in my opinion. Very little in the ways of car-to-car contact. The vast majority, single car incidents. See what happened here to the 177. Contact there. Yes,
Yeah,
and just as I say that, Les, we have some contact.
that was that vicious. It looked like it, didn't it? And, but yeah, it's just unfortunate really for Andy Frio, because I was just about to say, as I was looking down the order, you got Joshua and Alan, sorry, in P6, another good run there for Joshua, and Soldatov in P7, you know, pending possible penalties. Vicious now in P8, but Andy Friev, you know, well within inside the top 10, and you know, and a great run for them. So fortunate to get the drive through. But I'm assuming once the timing screens update, they'll probably come out around about sort of 12 P13 area, unless I've got that completely wrong, and they are in P9. But yeah, a great day either way. You know, especially the whole field, and you know, like you said, with the penalties being quite minimal, it's good to see.
It was an excellent call, by the way. Anufriev is in P13 in front of Levchenko by just about 2.5, 3 seconds, I would say. That has resolved itself for the time being. Martin Lawrence 18 seconds off of the leader. Savalainen holding at 11.5 or so seconds behind the second place car. Morgan McCall has continued to fend off a very quick Fabio Calandrino for fourth place. All those taking place inside the top five. And of course, Allen not too far behind Calandrino, nor is Soldatov. Only a second or so between them. And that brings us to Tadeusz Juknavicius, who had that battle with 177 nullified after the drive-through penalty for track limits. Deepers, not too bad, was the last car on pit lane, still inside the top 10, albeit 11 seconds behind this man, Juknavicius.
Yeah, although interestingly, you said that, you know, if Deepers was in P1, admittedly Joe was only a couple seconds behind, but when you come in the pits, come out in P9, that just goes to prove how close the field still is. You know, with only 23 minutes left to go of the 90-minute race, that's pretty impressive. Watch Joe here going around through farm, now coming into the arena, the new section of the one configuration circuit. And one part of the circuit I really struggle with getting a good line through here, and it's even more different, I say, in the rain. And see Joe blissfully going through there down into the straight, coming into the famous Brooklyn section. another heavy braking zone. I was trying to get that car pointed down to the apex and into Luffield and almost a double apex corner, and then exiting onto Woodcote, trying to keep minimal curb in these conditions. Obviously, in the dry, you want full curb, and you cross here like Joe does, across the start finish line, the old GP straight, and into the famous Cops. And lot slower than obviously what you normally see him going through there in the dry. And again, minimal curb on the exit, where I think Joe's able to make most of his time is just keeping it nice, sweet, and simple, and yeah, keeping it off those curves when he's accelerating, and it's proving that the old Porsche is still a quick car.
Well, we started this season, Les, and we were talking about this brand new strategy by Joe McCauley by entering the old fast in a straight line Porsche. And we were wondering how that would work at some of the tighter, twistier tracks. Well, it's not failed him to this point. It's been a solid steed no matter where he's raced it. And of course, not favored at some of the tracks we've been to, obviously, but it turned out to be an excellent pick. And on debut, everybody was loving it. They were loving that Joe was in the old Porsche, not the new one. And it shows that in the hands of a really good driver, and we've seen this a couple of times, the Ryan Race Team in the World Tour comes to mind as well with that GTR. In the
Yeah,
right hands, even an outdated car can be an absolute weapon. Joe further proving that rule today.
yeah, and if you can get the car set up right and get to grips with that car operating, the tire temps and tire windows as such, the optimal driving conditions of that car around these circuits. Pick, a car like this. Joe's obviously gone, like you said, straight line speeds, electric car, knowing also this car is good round some of the twistier tracks. Not most, but some, and it is good out those corners. Yeah, it's you've got to be able to sort of learn the car, I suppose. And Joe's proving it now, isn't he? Even in these wet conditions, the older car still is a good car.
We have had something come through from the stewards. Lap 27, a warning for car 991 for an unsafe rejoin after door banging. Never heard that one before come up in a penalty report, but that's the most apt term for what was going on. So, an unsafe rejoin after multiple collisions going off for the 991. Still no penalty, though there is a note here. Further instances will be penalized, I've been told. That is in the steward's report. So, they got to watch out. No more door to door stuff
Uh,
like that. Otherwise, that will require penalization. They're
yeah,
put
and
on notice.
but I noticed, yeah, and we've got Duke Vicious also has got himself a drive through with the limits.
No, another one. How many is that, Les? Is that four? Four or five?
I
I
think,
can't.
yeah, it's got to be. I mean, I'm losing count. Just
It's
once
so
I run
many.
out of fingers on that one hand, done.
I always said I can count to 10 or 20 if I'm not wearing shoes. And that's about the range of my counting. But Duke Novicius is going to have to count an extra trip to pit lane today if he hopes to make it to the checkered flag. A drive through four track limits. That's got to be, I believe that's the fourth driver in this race for a track limits drive through. We mentioned it earlier. You see it in some tracks more prevalent than others. Here, it's always a worry. And certainly it has come out today. Calandrino still trying to get by McCall. McCall, for the past 15 minutes, thereabout, has kept Calandrino behind him to great effect. An excellent battle here, cat and mouse, between the fourth and fifth place car.
Yeah, it really is a great battle, and been going on for some laps now. And it's great to see, especially this deep into the race. And but yeah, you can see now as well with Duke Division has gone right back down to P12, and just that one. Say one, it's three, isn't it? Three simple mistakes, just going a little bit too wide and keeping your foot in it, as they say. And unfortunately, lost that was that 4 or 5 position. So yeah, it really is must be gutting to know it's your mistake that's lost you so many positions.
final minutes of the race today. I say that with 17 minutes left to go, and we've seen a lot of self-inflicted accidents. We've seen some tempers flare. It's everything you expect to have out of a GT race, especially here at Silverstone. There's always close battles, and it always seems to come down to a couple of cars fighting over, I would call them major positions, not minor positions. And we have that yet again here today. Silverstone is just one of those tracks. I know a lot of people don't particularly like to race here. It's too wide, et cetera, and so forth. It's a formula track and all that. I don't necessarily subscribe to any of that. I think you can, it's one of the rare tracks, and I brought this up before. Silverstone's one of those rare tracks. You can bring anything here and have a good race.
Yeah, it's one of my personal favourite tracks on the calendar, and now maybe I'm a little bit biased because it's home country, but I think it's a great track. Yes, it can. You know, some people not so adventurous track. You know, it's not up and down. There's no sort of undulations or anything like that. But got nice long straights section. Got some nice high speed, twisty parts of the track, but also some slow speed twisty parts of the track. So there's plenty of opportunity for some high, braking zones where we can force that dive bomb. You know, the safe dive bomb, obviously. But the dive bomb, and it really can introduce some nice close racing.
It really does. I've seen so many different things race around this track, and it's just such a lovely place. And yes, it can get a bit spread out and all that, but there always seems to be something to watch, some battle. It doesn't matter how long it is, if it was a 24-hour race back in the day or a 25-minute sprint race, or it's also irrespective of what configuration you're running on as well. Some of my favorite racing I've ever seen here was on the Stowe circuit, for instance, but nevertheless, I know a lot of people got frustrated when they reconfigured the racetrack, and of course now you have the F1 straight and the GT straight. One of the happiest moments of my uh, my life for motorsports was hearing that GT cars were going to use the GT straight, not the F1 straight, and of course that's what we're using here today. That's what SRO uses. Obviously, we mirror that because of the sim, and that's just fantastic. To me, that makes all the changes they've made to this place over the years completely worth it. Maggots and Beckett's is still turn 2 and 3, with Cops as turn 1. Perfect to me. I know some people, though, it's a sticking point for them.
No, it's certainly not a sticking point for me. I think it's great that they do that. The F1 have the new pit straight, as it's called, and and you've got the GT. I mean, even the likes of two wheel racing, like MotoGP that use the GT straight as their start finish. Cops being turn one, so I think it's great, and like I said before, I love this song. I might be a little bit biased, obviously, but I think it's a great history.
Well, we have had an additional warning for car 38, and see exactly what that was entailing. Bring that back up. It was avoidable contact, a warning for car 38 against the 177 on lap 29. We've seen, let's count them, one, two, three, four. We've had 5 warnings for 5 different cars. Now, folks, if you get 2 warnings, that is automatically converted into a 5-second penalty. So we've had that many cars get a warning without a repeat warning to give a penalty. That's pretty incredible.
It is, and I just wonder maybe a bit of common sense with the stewards, maybe just thought and think, well, it's, thinking of close racing that we have, maybe just maybe a little bit more lenient. I don't know. I'm not a steward, but wondering if some of that maybe playing a part of those warnings. But as we're on board now with Calandrino really struggling to keep that Aston in a straight line, and still really close to the back of the field as they go over the GT start finish line down to Cops, turn 1, famous Cops, really backing off in these conditions, like we said before. And oh, look at that, really struggling to keep the back end in check as they go down to Maggots and Beckett's.
Les, what is Calandrino have to do to get this spot from Morgan McCall? Morgan's not going to make a mistake. I think if Morgan was going to make a mistake, it would have already happened. These two seem very close in pace, and that's what's keeping Calandrino from making this move on the 540 Mercedes. What can Fabio do to put themselves in a position here to make this pass if McCall is not willing to make a mistake? And it certainly doesn't look like that is the case.
Well, the first thing they need to do, Calandrino needs to make sure he doesn't look in his mirrors, because see in the mirrors in the picture here, Joshua Allen is also right on the back of him. So he needs to be a little bit wary of that. But I think really, just watching the onboard that we had then, I think there's going to be opportunities are going to be into those big zones down into Stowe. And then obviously you've got the other one at the end of the Wellington Straight there into Brooklyn. I think really there is two best areas, but you need to be close on the back of them on the exits of previous corners, such as coming out of Arena, down into the Wellington Straight. You need to be close, get that good exit, nice and close as possible, so then he can use that heavy braking zone to his advantage.
Maxim's had a very interesting race today. They've been down the pit lane and had all sorts of issues themselves, but still, potential spot in the top 10 for the 120. Benzino Bentley. See if they can get by Wouter Billen to make that a reality. Meanwhile, Calandrino still trying to figure out Morgan McCall. Not been able to close right up to the back of Morgan, and I wonder if maybe some of that is the power that McCall has on the straights, or maybe if that's a choice that Fabio is executing to not be directly behind the 540. Maybe that has something to do with the weather or just the strategy. But either way, they've been following fairly close. I would say almost about this close for a very long time. Neither car making any real mistake. Now, the problem, though, might not be between these two. It might be Joshua Allen who's creeping into the picture. There he is, look.
Yeah, although I must say, Calandrino did get a good exit. Chapel going on to the down towards Stowe there on the Hanger Straight, but just not good enough. I mean, I've driven that Aston for many races, and it is renowned to be slow out the corners, but it does make up for it towards the end of the straights. Unfortunately, got to be a little bit closer. But like you said, with Joshua Allen, really, it's going to be interesting. Just 10 minutes to go now, and I think really Calandrino's got to look at making the move as quickly as possible, prevent Joshua getting into the mix.
Final 10 minutes of the race and indeed the season. I think now is an appropriate time as ever to thank all of you who have been with us this season. We hope that you've enjoyed all the racing in the GT Sprint Challenge. And of course, following the conclusion of tonight's race, we will introduce the brand new Friday Championship and all the information you need to know to get up to speed with that series. And it's been fabulous. And Les Stevenson, your very first season with me, you took over, I think, in round 3 with us. And oh, yes, indeed. And you've been with us ever since. And it was your rookie season here on commentary. What did I got a question for you personally? Did you learn anything majorly about broadcasting that you didn't know before you came in?
There's a lot more that goes into it than I originally thought. But what I do know is I thoroughly enjoyed myself. Can't wait for more to come. And it's been a great season so far. And some of the battles we've seen this season has been quite amazing. And yeah, I'm looking forward to the future.
So we didn't scare you away then?
Absolutely not. I'm afraid to say, Jesse, here to stay at this point.
Well, I'll put it to you this way. For all of you at home, you're likely to hear more of the Fat Stig, as you all know him as, Les Stevenson, here on RCI in the future. And it's an absolute pleasure to have you. From the very first moment I ever talked to Les, I knew that he was going to be something special. Had no idea it was going to be him and I together here on Friday with Stewie on the cameras, but that is how fate shook out. And what a maiden season it has been. It's been up and down all season long. And up until last week, we really didn't know who might win the championship. And it is all going Savalainen's day. Savalainen doesn't need to do anything special today. He would have known that coming in, but still putting on a show. Potential podium in the final race, cementing his championship over what looks to be Joe McCauley today. Of course, Borgosman, who was second in that championship, will surely fall down several spots indeed. Thomas Jack racing climbs for 16th place. I'm very surprised to see Jan Climbs all the way down in P16. Oh, look at this. For fourth place, Calandrino has the suck down the straight, but nowhere near close enough to make a move in the final couple of turns.
And as we go into Brooklands now, just get a good exit, get really close on the brakes there, and yeah, the Mercedes it's just good out the corner there. Well, it's certainly better than Aston, and yeah, it's getting close. It's getting close. I think Calandrino must be jumping at the bit now and thinking he really needs to get past, but just can't get close enough.
I think that's the story. McCall doing everything in their power to continue to hold on to that spot. I feel like it's the tale of two different cars. Yes, they're both front engine cars, but realistically, that's all they have in common with one another. And I think that AMG is just so much better leaving corners, and maybe down the straight gets caught by the 12 a little bit. It's really hard to tell, but certainly an advantage in some corners, a disadvantage in others. That's what's kept them close, but I think it's to McCall's advantage. It's kept him in front here. And I say this quite often, there's a handful of cars I wouldn't, or drivers rather, I wouldn't want to be stuck behind. Joe McCauley's one of them, Morgan McCall's another, and this is case in point. If they get in front of you, even if you're quicker, it is hard to pass them, and I think you're seeing case study number one here with Morgan.
Yeah, certainly, and yeah, it's like you said, it's one thing to catch, but totally different thing to pass. And I think Calandrino, I don't know his history. I don't know racing the Aston. Certainly looks like he's struggling a little bit under the brakes. He's like, but yeah, I think he's yeah. He's still got just over 4 minutes now to go, so he's got plenty of time to get that move done. But it's proving to be very difficult.
Maxim in the 120 still trying to take 10th place away. There's still stagnant between the two of them. Maxim has caught Wouter Billen and has done some time ago, but no pass between the two of them. This for the top 10 and potentially some of the last bragging rights in the season. But Les, we are not done with the track limits penalties today.
No, we're not, as we see Deepers now getting the drive through, and as it's been confirmed for track limits. Is that the second one for Deepers? No, I don't think it is it? No, I'm dreaming things. No, but yeah, that's. I mean, with just under 4 minutes to go to get a drive through now, that's pretty gutting, and probably going to come out. They even lose 5 or 6 positions there with a long train of cars. We've got sort of P9 down to P15, no P14, should I say, and might even come out behind Levchenko.
Absolutely heartbreaking in the dying moments of the race and indeed the season for Felix Diepers. They have served that penalty. They're exiting back on the track. I believe they're behind Levchenko, so should be in P15 if my math is correct, and indeed it is on this occasion. See that, Mom? I can do math. P15 for the car, and that will take them out of the top 10, and it'll be a sour finish to what was an excellent challenge today.
And we got Maxim now really right on the back of that Walter Billen, isn't he? Yes, trying to get that P9 away from Walter. Going to go for the dive bomb. Oh, is it going to be contact?
Oh.
Yeah, well held, and
that was best case scenario. I think we'll all agree there.
Yeah, I think that was it's certainly very close, maybe a bit too close, but they got away with it in the end. And They try it
Oh,
on.
no! Oh,
Oh,
no! We saw it live. We saw it happen earlier to a driver running wide there and getting a penalty. Well, we've seen it again. I saw Maxim do that, and I thought, isn't that how earlier in the race there was a drive-through penalty awarded? And unfortunately, it
oh,
has happened again, and a little bit sideways off that corner as well. The 38 flashing, Jutnavicius trying to make their way through. Oh, gets almost crossed up there, stuck behind the 120. Let's take another look at that.
Duke Vicious getting almost sideways as well. And yeah, I was just about to say, Duke Vicious really catch these guys at the right knots and could even be getting up after Robert Villan closing stages. But no, Maxim's going to go another lap. He's not going to take that drive through. So maybe not. But he's going to take the penalty at the end of the race, I think, Jesse.
Yeah, it's a massive time penalty, but at this stage, it doesn't matter too awful much what you do. I don't hate the decision. Unfortunate nonetheless.
Yeah, it's I'm a sucker for getting the penalty clear, get it over and done with. You've made the mistake, go and pay for it now, and hopefully you can make up some positions. I know it's really late in the race, but you never know. You just don't know.
You really don't. And we thought that maybe we were done with the drive-throughs. Well, we weren't. And another one credited here. Unfortunately, that ruins that battle for P10, I'm afraid, for the time being, but still have a battle for P4. Question is, can Calandrino make it happen on the South African driver?
It's looking unlikely at the moment, but still looks like they're in the same exactly about 6-7 laps to go. But we can see now that Joe Cully is now on the final lap, and so they're coming now up to the end of their lap, so they've got one more lap to go. Try and for McCall to hold on to P4 and Caladrino to try and gain P4, but let's see what can happen.
We certainly will. Calandrino will have one more lap. This is the white flag, last lap for these drivers. They've just now crossed the line. They will get one more shot at it here today. And for Joe McCauley, what can you say? It was a campaign where he dominated some of the season, but rather unfortunately, the ones that he didn't are going to be the reasons he ends up second in this championship. And also, what can you say about Savalainen? Smooth as silk, didn't always have the fastest car, didn't need to, was consistent. You could argue the most consistent throughout every single round. And Savalainen will end up being your Season 5 GT Challenge champion today. But before we get to that point, the matter for fourth place still unsettled here. One more chance, I think.
Yeah, and as they come into the chicane the club and then round onto the Hamilton straight, got the fast section. I don't think any moves. You might make a move going into the arena, but I think it's going to be at Brooklands. But as we see Joe now across the finishing line, and that's all three boxes ticked today for Joe, isn't it?
It sure is. Joe McCauley did everything right today. He had the fastest lap in the race, the pole lap, and the win. He did everything trying to win this championship. He's going to come up just a little bit short. But what about Martin Lawrence as well? Didn't have the greatest start, but fought all the way back to P2. And Juna Savalainen off of the final corner. He didn't need to do anything special today, but still he did. A podium spot, a third place spot, and a championship clinching spot. Your champion of Season 5 for the GT Challenge in Pro, Juna Savalainen.
Congratulations, Junior Savalainen. What a way to championship. Yeah, well done, and Joe to, like I said, tick all three boxes, get the win today, the pole, and the fastest lap. That's pretty darn impressive.
It sure is. Macaulay gets the checkered flag. Savalainen will get the cup. Now, this is racing to the, no, not to the flag, rather. This was several laps ago, but that was the contact between those two. We said that that was the best case scenario.
Yeah, and then unfortunately Maxim then gets himself following. Uh, well, there we go, and there's a repeat of it there, and yeah, that was that corner, wasn't it? Yeah, this is that corner. I don't know. Maybe I'm getting a bit confused,
I
but
believe
yeah,
you're
it,
right.
it was. Yeah, I think it was best case scenario, like you said.
We're trying to find what happened to Maxim because something happened. He lost several spots coming to the checkered flag. It's already happened here. Unsure. Sure exactly what happened to the 120, but they lost a couple of spots coming to the line, compounding the already frustrating end to their race and the season. Well, Savalainen, your champion, Les McCauley, second place. And well, your guess is as good as mine. Who finished third? It could be anybody. It could have been Caracas, Juknavicius, or Martin Lawrence. I'm unsure, to be honest, but either way, an excellent championship came down to the wire again, and the podium positions changed mid race in the last race.
Yeah, great finale race there. Championship. Just going back to what you were talking about there, I think it could just be Lawrence and Duke the Vicious. E3. I don't know. We'll have to wait and see. But yeah, no, great end to a championship. What a great race with the conditions as well. Very tricky. Great to see the contact down to a bare minimum in my eyes. Unfortunate to see so many drive-throughs. I was quite shocked. Drive-throughs that we had today. The track limit is what it is. They've had to pay their penalty, and but either way, a fairly clean and good race considered.
Well, I will say this sets the stage for the next sprint championship. And why mess with success? We're not going to do anything like that. The new Friday GT Sprint Championship coming at you in just a few weeks' time. But for now, join racerci.com, RACE RCI.com, and get all the information provided for you for the new season. It's going to be 6 rounds in that championship. No major rule changes in that series for round number 6. The question is now, with that going live in the next day or so for pre qualifying, can sign up and get ready for all of that to come. Les, can Savalainen defend his championship? It was an up and down season for him, but it didn't seem to phase him. Can he repeat as champion again?
Well, I don't see any reason why not. You know, Savalonen's had a is steady championship. Uh, unfortunate as Suzuka, but had some very good races in between. And no, I can't see any reason why not. You know, good driver. You know, depending on what the car is that they go for, and whether they stick with the same car or not. Don't know the exact rules. I'm assuming it's the any GT3 car, Jesse. I haven't
It is
seen.
indeed.
It is. It is. Well, if Savalonen sticks with the same car again, he knows the car. He knows a lot of the tracks already, as we know. But yeah, I can't see any certainly make for a good championship. To got to try and defend it, haven't you?
Well, according to my watch, signups open for season 6 sometime tomorrow afternoon in the UK. So be on the lookout for that. It's the standard 6 rounds, all GT3 cars eligible, of course, and the race is really unchanged. New tracks, of course. I don't think we have a single repeating track from this season, but 1 hour races. Pre-qualifying starts over the weekend. Get involved with the biggest championship here on RCI TV outside the endurance rounds. And Les, once again, just an absolute pleasure having you with me all season long. Can't wait to come back and do it again.
Yeah, nor can I, Jesse. And thank you for having me and inviting me along in the first place. It's been absolute, eye opener, but also an absolute. Yeah, it's been great championship.
Well, as we sign off here tonight, once again, just thank you for watching. Like, subscribe, hit the bell for more GT racing content. We'll be back with you tomorrow night, Ted, myself, and Stewie, for Night Owl coverage. The Night Owl Championship returning after its hiatus for the World Tour one weekend ago. Of course, Monday, the championship continuing for the GT, or excuse me, the Challenger Series on Monday. And we'll see Diamond Drive Wednesday, Thursday, the BMW Touring Car Championship. Of course, we will not be back with you next Friday, a couple of weeks off for pre qualifying for the next season. But big thank you for all of you that have joined us, our stewarding team, our broadcast team, Stewie, for having to put up with us too all season long as well. And a big thank you to our partners, racedepartment.com, your source of sim racing news and information. AK Informatica for providing our server solutions. Driver 61, you can get 25% off your driver coaching by going to driver61.com and entering our discount code. Driver coaching can make you a quicker and better racing driver. Fanatec.com, you can use our affiliate link when making quality purchases of sim racing hardware at fanatec.com and simracing.gp. If you're tired of pub racing scene or just wanting to have more regular racing, sign up to simracing.gp, join a community. Signing up, of course, is completely free. Folks, it was a crazy season that looked like Macaulay was going to run away with it, but Savalainen was absolutely on it every round to get as many points as they possibly could. It came down to a three-horse race in the end, and Savalainen, your champion in season 5. On behalf of everybody here at RCI, we thank you for watching. We'll see you next season. And until then, have a good night.